Hello everyone, welcome to our June session of What's Up in the Sky. And today here we have with me again with us, Astronomical Society of Penang. We have Mr. C.K. Lim Chun Kiat, and myself, Dr. Derek Lim, to introduce to you stuff that happens in the sky in June and possibly some interesting surprises. So June is an interesting month, I think mainly because of the solstice and the Milky Way galactic core that's rising. I think that that's kind of a particular focus for lots of astrophotographers. So we'll go through those information as well as some other sky events. CK, why don't you start off with telling us about some of the sky events in the month of June 2021.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Dr. Derek Lim. For June of 2021, we don't have actually many events lining up, but we do have a couple of events that worth mentioning. For example, we have June the 12th. Let me show you the simulation. This is on June the 12th on the 8 p.m. local time. On June the 12th, you look to the west direction. Okay, look to the west. There's a conjunction of Moon and Venus. So if you are aware, Venus is always referring to as evening stars or sometimes morning star, right? Because they appear very bright in the eastern horizon before the sunrise. Then we call it the morning star. But for June, it will be in the evening sky. So we have the evening star, Venus, for this month. And on June the 12th, it will be close to the moon. If you don't know where is Venus, you don't know which one is Venus, although it's very bright, you won't miss it. You can still use the moon as a guiding, as a guidepost. Because the moon on that particular day, it will be just a little bit above Venus. So if you look at it, this is at 8 p.m. And if I click on Venus, let me check for you. So at 8 p.m., Venus will be about 10 degrees in altitude. So I would say that's quite high. Okay, it's quite high. And the moon will be slightly to the right and above it. So if you cannot see Venus, try to look for the moon first. Then you can try to look for Venus, which is on the lower left of the moon. Other interesting object on that particular night will probably be the Mars at the top there. You can see the Mars over here. Mars at this time is actually quite dim already. I believe it's down to like magnitude 2 plus.
I have a question, CK.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
How wide are the moon and Venus separated?
Good question. According to the almanac that we have, from the useful Astronomy Society of Penang calendar. Actually, I got it here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's it mentioned here 2.1 degrees. Yeah, even from the estimation from the stellarium, it's about 2 degrees, because it's 2 degrees actually equivalent to 4 diameter of the moon.
Yes. So the moon is like half a degree.
Half a degree. That is right. Yes. So that's what happened on the June the 12th. Right. The other notable event is actually happening on the June the 21st. Okay, June the 21st, what we call the summer solstice.
The furthest north the sun will be, right?
Yeah, the further north the sun will be. I always study in a school, or we heard from the internet, whatever. The sun always rises from the east and set in the west, right? But it is not always true, because at certain time the sun is always further north or further down south. The only time that the sun actually rise up due east and set due west is during the equinox. Equinox, depending on your place, will be somewhere around March 20, 21st and September 20 and 21st. On the month of, like, for example, June 21st, the sun will move far to the north. So how far north does the sun move? It's about the 23.5 degrees due north from the east direction. So where do we get this 23.5 from? So 23.5 is actually because the rotation axis of the Earth is actually tilted 23.5 degrees. So when we face the sun on the June 21st, we are at the northern hemisphere is actually facing the sun. We look at the sun, and the sun is actually rising due north on 21st. So this is the highest that it can get. And if we forward from the June the 1st, you can see that every day the sun is actually moving slightly to the left. Okay, it's not that apparent, but after the June the 21st, right, it moved to the further north, then it started to move to the south bank, okay? Then as you can see, on September, we have the equinox because that time it rises directly east. So what you expect is that on June 21st, the sun will be furthest north. Then later, the sun will go back slightly to the south each day. I think that's about wrap up the June schedule event.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I like to add
Yes.
really quickly. I mean, there are people that have taken image of the sun at the same time throughout the year, create this pattern, like infinity-shaped pattern in the sky,
Yes.
the
Yes.
analemma, right?
Yes. Yes.
That exactly reflects this motion of the
Yeah.
sun. Yeah,
That is correct.
apparent motion. Yes.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, you can see actually the sun is actually moving, even from day to day. You know, if you have a clear view of watching the sun rising or setting, if you watch it every day, you can see that the sun is actually rising up and setting at a slightly different position each day. You know, so if you really follow it, then you get a funny shape of like the number 8 there. You know, it's all because of the Earth is tilted. You know. So yeah, you can actually simulate that in Stellarium also. Let me maybe I'll try to simulate for you. Like for example, I just move it very fast month to month. You can see the month to month. You see, this is the same time every month, but yeah, see it moving something like that. Can you see that?
Yep. Oh,
Yeah, it is something like that. Moving this kind of age. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, you can see that if you draw it because I think we are on the north side, right? So the figure of 8, right? The 8 on the left hand side, further north one, is actually smaller.
Yes.
Smaller, you see. So okay, let's see. Yeah, maybe we move on to other interesting object on for this month. Maybe Dr. Derek, you want to continue?
Sure. So I think that everyone would be excited to image the galactic core of the Milky Way. So on the weekend of June 11th, 12th, and 13th, the galactic core of the Milky Way would rise in the evening, right about 9 p.m. So there's no excuse to miss this very nice conjunction between the moon and in the west, right after sunset, pretty much. I think maybe optimally, probably just about 8:10, 8:15. Venus is still approximately 9 degrees 52 minutes. So above the horizon, relatively high with the moon at 11.5 degrees. So I think that this is like perfect conjunction to view. And then once you finish viewing, we'll turn our attention to the east, set up your star trackers or whatnot, because in fact the galactic core has risen. Okay, but let's kind of fast forward to 9 p.m. Why I kind of selected the time of 9 p.m. is because here we can almost see the galactic core, the Milky Way. It really is starting to rise, and it's probably about, let's see, let's check here. It's here's about 9 degrees above the horizon, 9 close to 10, so 10 degrees right about here, where M8 and Lagoon Nebula. It's about 10 degrees above the horizon. So I think it's a healthy height above the horizon where a lot of the atmospheric dust and water vapor especially has been cleared. So we'll be able to take a good photo of the galactic core of the Milky Way. And compositionally, I like to take the galactic core kind of near the horizon so that we can actually get some foreground together with the galactic core. I think that this will be something that a lot of people would enjoy taking a photo of. So let's push it to 9:30. Okay, the Milky Way gets higher up, further up. Do 9:45, 10 p.m. Okay, right around 10 p.m. The Milky Way now, the whole Milky Way is almost actually parallel to the horizon, which actually is always a nice composition. I like to take astrophoto with landscapes for fun. Just for instance, this image right here. So I'm shamelessly promoting my photos. Okay, but I mean, it's just a recommendation. This is by all means not the best photo you can find, I would say. However, I found this location. This location is at Tasik Beris in Kedah, Malaysia. And on this particular night, the lake was steady. I'm a fan of simplicity, simple photos. So probably 1, 2, 3 shots, 5 shots, and then just stacked in a program called Starry Landscape Stacker. If you use the Windows operating system, there's a program called Sequator as well that is free. So you can use this program to kind of align the stars and stack them. Stacking meaning like add up the signal, okay, and the noise, which is random. When you add it up, it cancels out, okay? Because technically, when we say stacking and adding, we actually we can say that we are averaging, okay? So if we take the average of random numbers, they average out to almost 0, okay, or a certain background level. But if our stars, for instance, is a constant signal, so the star signal keeps averaging at a constant, but the noise averages out to a very low level. So we are able to do some noise reduction by stacking our images. So this is one photo in particular.
Yeah, a question for you, Dr. Derek. So if I want to take this kind of photo, right, or any of the viewer, they want to take this kind of photo, what kind of lenses do you recommend to use?
I myself in particular, I like to use 24 to 70. I believe this is a 24 millimeter that I used. What's important for the lens is aperture. If you use a full frame camera, okay, I would recommend an aperture about f4 at the very least. So anything brighter than f4. So f4, next step is f2.8, and then f2. And then I have the Samyang 24 millimeter f1.4. And that lens has very little distortion at the corners. Okay, yeah. So lens selection, maybe one day we'll have to talk about it. But otherwise, I think the lenses in a range of 24 millimeter, 20 millimeters, 18 millimeters, I think is pretty nice. I have a friend, his name is Samex Chong. If I'm not mistaken, he uses a 20 millimeter Sigma lens, okay, with Nikon camera. And what he does this panorama, and they come out like totally amazing. I mean, that is if you want to spend the time to create a very beautiful image, that's what he's very good at. For me, I'm kind of more simplistic. I just like a quick photo, take it and stack them and try to admire it. So this is kind of my style of it. So I think that I would kind of prefer like 18, 20, 24 millimeters. For this kind of view, I think you can even zoom into 35 millimeters and still get a decent composition.
Yeah, do you have any recommended setting? I mean, like what the ISO or the exposure time like?
First of all, I think that the most important thing is know what camera you use. If you have a full frame, a lens of at least f4 brightness. If you have a crop sensor APS-C, okay, which crop factor 1.5 or 1.6, in my personal opinion, at least f2.8. If you have a micro four thirds sensor, Olympus or Panasonic, at least f2. Because the apertures need to open up enough to gather enough light. Well, astrophotography is all about signal to noise. So you need to gather as much signal as possible. My experience, so I have used Olympus, I have used Fuji, which is a crop sensor, and I have used full frame Canon and Sony. My view is any brand is good for astrophotography, at least landscape style photography, as long as you know what settings to use. So that's a good question. Now, as for ISO, it really depends too on your camera. For Canon cameras, in my view, I always like to push the ISO because for Canon, what we call non-ISO invariant sensor, I would go with like at least 1600 to 3200 ISO. Okay, I've used Olympus with ISO up to 3200, 6400, Fuji as well, 3200, 6400. Okay, yeah, they're all using the post-processing software to do noise reduction. If you can do stacking, I really encourage to download Sequator, which is free. If you use a Mac, unfortunately, you have to use a Starry Landscape Stacker, or if you run Parallels or some Windows emulator, then you can use Sequator on your Mac. What you need too is sturdy tripod. Please don't buy a plastic tripod. Buy a sturdy one, strong one. So if the wind blows, your camera does not shake and you get like streaky stars. And if you're really in for it,
Ten, ten, ten. Yeah.
Yes, this is a Vixen Polari U.
Yeah.
But in general, it's a star tracker, right? So what it is, okay, this is where I attach my camera, and this actually is something called a polarimeter for aligning. So we'll probably leave this as another subject for another day. But basically, if you can polar align this, okay, yeah. One important thing that I forgot to mention about settings is like exposure time. Since the Earth rotates, as you can see in our stellarium simulation, if you expose too long, at 24 millimeters, I think the maximum you can expose is about 20 seconds. If you're very particular or you have a very high megapixel camera, at 20 seconds and 24 millimeter full frame or full frame equivalent lens, okay, you zoom in, you will still see the slight trailing. There's a 500 rule, 500 divided by the full frame focal length, okay? So 500 divided by 24, just approximately 20 seconds, okay? Always round down instead of round up. Yeah, but the star tracker helps you beat that. Okay, so that's some good basic introduction for imaging the galactic core. So let us take a look at this month's constellation of the month. Is none other than the Scorpion right here, the claws, Antares, the heart of the Scorpion, and then this is the tail, and that's kind of like the stinger. This constellation, according to mythology, Orion was a mighty hunter, and he was very great, okay, on Earth. He was a very great hunter, and his head in the clouds, too highly of himself probably, and vowed to kill all the creatures on Earth. And the goddess of Earth, Gaia, was alarmed. So she sent a giant scorpion to kill Orion by stinging him before he can kill all the animals. The scorpion attacked Orion, stung him, and killed Orion. So in order to reward the scorpion, Earth goddess Gaia put the scorpion in the sky. And Orion, they said, okay, you can still hunt. We'll put you in the sky too, but we'll put you in the winter sky, far away from the scorpion. So if you realize, like in the evening, when you look towards the west on June 12th, okay, you see Sirius setting. Sirius is actually very near Orion, right? Orion has set already. So whenever Orion set, the scorpions come up. Okay, the scorpion comes up, and when Orion rises, the scorpion sets. They're never in the sky at the same time. So that's kind of the story of why there's a scorpion in the sky. I read too in New Zealand, or I think it's a Maui legend has it that this hook is actually called Maui's hook. So if you have kids and you watch this cartoon called Moana, of course one of the characters is Maui, and he carries a hook, and this is his hook right here in the sky. And apparently this hook was used to fish up the whole Aotearoa, or the island of New Zealand, okay, out of the sea. Yeah, that's how I understood it. So that's kind of like another mythology. But let's have a look at the constellation itself. Let's have a look at some interesting stuff in the constellation, right? So right here, we can already see that there's all these colors in the sky. Okay, what are they? They are just nebulosity, they're gas in the sky that's reflecting starlight, okay, or illuminated, heated up by the stars, okay? So this is the Rho Ophiuchus Nebula, okay, the nebula complex. Basically, Antares, Rho Ophiuchus. Rho Ophiuchus actually fascinates me. Why? Because every time I look at Rho Ophiuchus, I think of Mickey Mouse. There you go. That's Rho Ophiuchus right there. And look, there it has that Mickey Mouse ears right there. So that's why I always see it as a Mickey Mouse star. Yeah. Okay, and of course the nebulosity around Rho Ophiuchus, and this right here. Okay, we zoomed in quite a lot. This is a globular cluster. right here. I don't know whether I can highlight it in Stellarium properly. But it's a globular cluster called M4, okay, designated M4 Messier for fourth entry in the Messier object list. So if you have a pair of binoculars, have a look at it.
I think the nebulosity we cannot see with naked eye, right? But you can see the star of Antares, very nice. I mean, the whole constellation of Scorpius, it looks to me in the sky like just a like J, you know, like a big hook, like say maybe the Maui hook, you know. But it looks really like a, to me it looks like J. It's very clear, you know. You won't miss it. You see it, then you know, yeah, the J there is the Scorpio. The end of the J is the tail of the Scorpion. And the front of the J, you try to look for the star Antares, is that red star, you know. There are another two star up and down it, you know. It sometimes look a little bit like the Orion belt, but it's not that straight. But yeah, Antares is very bright. Antares is very bright. It's a red supergiant, right? It's a supergiant star which is maybe going to explode in the next few million years. Yeah. The M4 global cluster is a bit interesting. I like to see that it's not very bright. It's very nice, but sometimes I miss it. I've seen it with the binoculars before, but if you use a telescope, you can see it better. But it's not an easy object, although it's you can see Antares and you thought, yeah, I maybe look for Antares and then jump a little bit to the right and up a little bit. But if the sky is not good, the transparency is not good, it sometimes disappears. It disappears to me. I think the surface brightness is a little bit low. I mean, it's compared to maybe the next object, maybe you can see the M22, which I really like. Yeah, but this M4 is a nice globular cluster. Yeah. Yes. If you have a telescope or small binoculars, yeah, try to look for this object.
Yeah, and I think that you bring up a very important point, CK. That is like expectation, visual expectation, right? We shouldn't expect to see all the stars in a binocular. We probably just see a blob, okay? Yeah. And you need a telescope of maybe about 6 inches or larger in order to start resolving the little stars. Yeah. At the edges of the globular. Okay, so there is there is like this expectation, visual expectation. Visual and astrophotography are very different things.
Yeah. If you have a binoculars or telescope, you can actually see, you can identify the globular cluster. It actually if you look at Antares, it's just a point source of light. And if you see a globular cluster, it looks like a cotton ball like that. There's no defined edges to me. To me, it looks like just a cotton ball. You know, it's a patch of light, circular, and it's like much dimmer than the star usually. Most of the time, you would not be able to resolve the individual star unless you have a huge scope. I believe this M4 is still quite nice. I mean, you can still see the individual star with, like you said, maybe a 6-inch telescope, which should be good enough. But for most of us, for our average sky, it will probably look like cotton ball to me.
So speaking of cotton balls, let's have a look at one interesting cluster first, and then we move to another cotton ball, but in a neighboring constellation, right? The M22. But this guy here, I want to highlight this guy. Okay, this is my favorite cluster in the sky, but it's not exactly listed, I think. Oh, here it is. So it's NGC 6231. You won't see this nebulosity, but this grouping of stars right here is particularly interesting. Okay, it's right off Zeta Scorpius, which is actually an interesting star itself. I believe it's double, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, and just north of it is this grouping of stars. And if you have a long lens of about, let's say, 200 millimeters with a star tracker or equator mount, or you have a telescope, this is a very interesting object to image as well. So otherwise, if you have a binocular, just enjoy the view of this guy. So right now, the field of view is at about 5 degrees. This here is a 7-degree field of view, which almost mimics the view you will see in a binocular. A typical 7x50 or 8x40 binocular, which is about 6-7 degrees field of view. Okay, so you'll be able to see kind of this smatter of stars, right? And then there's of course ever popular couple of clusters here, N7 Ptolemy's cluster, M6, the butterfly cluster.
They are very nice to look at, if you have a binoculars. In fact, I use these two clusters as a gauge, to see how good is the sky. So if your sky is good, actually you can use the naked eye, and you are able to see these two clusters. They are visible even without binoculars. With your naked eye, you can see if your sky is good. So if you can see these two clusters, means the sky is good. In a small telescope or binoculars, they are very stunning. It's a very nice object. Easy to find. You just follow the Scorpio, the end of the tail of Scorpio, the end of the J, you move to the left. Yeah, you'll be able to see these two clusters. And I think the top cluster is M6, right? The butterfly cluster, Dr. Derek?
Yes, M6.
Yeah, and they actually look, I show it to many of my friends through the move to butterfly. Yeah, if you zoom into the butterfly cluster, you can actually see that they look like butterfly, the wing of the butterfly. If you use the telescope, small telescope, you can see that it look like a wing of butterfly, something like that. So it look very stunning.
So here the field of view is right about just under 2 degrees, which is kind of like a typical low power field of view in the telescope, in the Newtonian, Dobsonian. Usually I like to get it to 2 degrees. If that's 1 degree, 1.3 degree field of view, yeah, that's how it would appear. So yes, I agree. It's a very beautiful cluster. And what I usually like to look out for when I'm looking at clusters is the color of the stars. I mean, over here, there's depictions of colors. I'm not sure how accurate they are, but I do remember that actually I kind of prefer the colors of M7. Let's see where I can glide to M7. Okay, there we go. Yes, so this is this should be M7 right here. If I remember, some of the stars look orangish and then some of them are reddish. So the color contrasts are pretty nice. But you probably do need to look at it with a telescope to be able to see the colors.
I think we can start to view this constellation as soon as the sun set, right? Right now, for this month is a good time. I mean, you can view it rising during just after sunset, and it will set just before sunrise. So you have the whole night to view it move from the east to the west.
Just the constellation, just slowly marching its way across the sky.
Yeah. It will be very interesting, especially if you have a dark sky.
So anything you want to add, CK?
I think no. I think we have run out of time also. I think we don't want to keep this program too long. Yeah, but we hope to see the viewer again, and we hope that the viewer give comment. Whether they like the program, anything that they want to see change, any object that you want us to discuss more on the equipment, on observation and things like that. Anything under the sky, you can just shoot it out, and we'll try to see where we can, help.
So if you haven't subscribed to us, Astronomical Society of Penang, please subscribe down below somewhere. Yeah. And please go to our Facebook page as well and click a like, support, follow, and keep up to date to our videos, live streams, and astronomy chats and events. And we are also on Shopee. There we have some astronomical merchandise, right? So can you tell us about it, CK?
We have a astronomical calendar up already. Then we have some other thing. Then recently we added I Love Astronomy T-shirt. It's on sale now in Shopee. I think you can find some good offer there. Yeah, if you're interested, go to our Shopee page, search for Astronomical Society of Penang, and you will see our merchandise listed there.
Okay, and I think that that will conclude today's session. Thank you very much for listening and following us, and we'll see you again next month for July's What's Up in the Sky. Have a good day. Clear skies to all.
Yeah, bye-bye.